Now that we know how to set up the click, it's time to determine what the tempo of our project is going to be and also what time signature it's going to be in. So down in the transport panel where we activated the click by making sure that the click was on, you'll notice that there's also a tempo setting and a time signature setting. Now Cubase has two operational tempo modes. Your Cubase project can follow either a consistent tempo setting or it can modulate tempo throughout the project. And so depending on how you have this particular tempo setting configured will determine which mode you're in. So right now we're looking at the tempo track setting. In tempo track setting, it means that there's a special track inside of Cubase that you can program to have the project change tempo over time. But we're not going to do that in this particular project. Instead, this project is going to start at one tempo and never deviate from that tempo. And so for a project like that, you can use tempo fixed mode. So I'm going to change to tempo fixed mode simply by clicking on the tempo, and now you'll notice that the tempo value can be changed. Before, if you were in tempo track, you couldn't actually double click on that tempo value. So in the tempo fixed mode, you can change the tempo value. You can also change the time signature. So if you wanted your entire project to be 2/4 or 3/4 or 7/8, you could change the time signature simply by double-clicking on it and typing in the value that you want. But we're going to stick with the standard time signature of 4/4, and then if you wanted to change the tempo to a value that you had already predetermined, you could simply double-click on that value and type in the value that you wanted. But what if you don't really know what tempo you want to record at? Well, there's this great little feature up here in the project pull-down menu. You'll notice that there's an option for beat calculator. And when you select beat calculator, then there's a couple of different things that you can do in here. What I like to do is click on the tap tempo button. And when I do that, you'll notice that there's a little dialog box that pops up that asks me to just start tapping the space bar on my computer keyboard or tapping the mouse button to set the tempo. And so I'm going to use my space bar on my computer keyboard to just tap out the tempo. And for this particular project that we're going to be working on, it's kind of fast. So it's going to be about here. That's maybe a little too fast. But you can see that on every tap that I make on my space bar, it starts to calculate the tempo. And so right there, it's about 170 beats per minute, 170.4 to be exact. And that feels, just to my mind, like the tempo that I want to use. So I'm going to go ahead and click on OK, and then I'm going to come down to this little button and click on At Tempo Track Start so that it puts the tempo at the very, very beginning of the project. Then I can close this window, and then you'll notice that when you come down to the transport panel, the tempo is now set to that value that we determined with the beat calculator at 170.4 beats per minute. And since we have our click track on, we could just hit the record button to hear the tempo. And you'll see that it's much faster than the 120 beats per minute that we had set up originally. So now we have our time signature set, and we have established a fixed tempo setting. And in the next tutorial, I'm going to show you how to do cycle record mode.